Take a look around you for a moment. Everything you own has a price. Your house, your car, your phone, even the cup of coffee you bought this morning. Every single day we wake up, go to work, earn money, spend money, save money, and sometimes lose sleep because of money. It has become such a normal part of our lives that we rarely stop to think about it. But have you ever asked yourself one incredibly simple question? What is money? Not how much you have, not how to make more of it, but what money actually is. Think about it for a second. Right now, there may be a few pieces of paper in your wallet. Or maybe you don't even carry cash anymore. Maybe everything you own exists only as numbers on a screen, inside a bank account, on a credit card, or in a mobile app. Those numbers aren't made of gold. They aren't backed by silver. In fact, they have almost no value on their own. And yet, people spend years building houses in exchange for them. Doctors dedicate their lives to earning them. Farmers work from sunrise to sunset for them. Millions of people wake up every morning because of them. But why? Why would someone exchange months of hard work for something that is, at its core, just paper? Or even worse, nothing more than digital numbers? The answer seems obvious at first. Because money has value. But that's not really an answer. The real question is, why does money have value? Who decided that a small piece of paper could buy food, fuel, or even an entire home? Why do nearly 8 billion people, speaking different languages and living in different cultures, all trust the same invisible idea? And here's an even stranger thought. If tomorrow morning everyone on Earth suddenly stopped believing that money had value, what would happen? Would the paper in your wallet still be worth anything? Would the numbers in your bank account still mean anything? Or would they become exactly what they really are? Just paper, or just numbers on a screen. The truth is, money isn't one of humanity's oldest inventions. It's one of humanity's greatest stories. A story built on trust, a story that changed the course of civilization. And to understand why money is valuable today, we first have to travel back to a world where money didn't exist at all. There was a time when money didn't exist. No coins, no banknotes, no credit cards, no bank accounts. For thousands of years, people lived without carrying a wallet or checking a bank balance. Yet life went on. Families grew, villages flourished, and trade already connected people long before the first coin was ever minted. So how did they buy the things they needed? The answer was surprisingly simple. They traded. If you were a farmer with more wheat than your family could eat, you might exchange some of it for fresh fish caught by a fisherman. If you made pottery, you could trade your handmade pots for clothing woven by someone else. Every exchange depended on one simple idea. Each person had something the other wanted. At first, this system worked well. Communities were small. People knew one another, and most trades happened between neighbors. There was trust, and there was time. But as villages became towns, and towns became cities, the cracks in the system began to appear. Imagine that you own a cow, but what you really need is bread. You find a baker, but the baker doesn't need a cow. He needs firewood. Now you have to find someone willing to trade firewood for your cow before you can finally buy the bread. One simple purchase suddenly turns into a chain of complicated exchanges. The larger society became, the more difficult this problem grew. People needed something that everyone would accept. Something valuable enough to store wealth, small enough to carry, and trusted enough that a stranger would accept it without hesitation. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a problem that limited the growth of trade, cities, and entire civilizations. Without a common way to exchange value, economies could only grow so far. Humanity wasn't looking to invent money. It was simply trying to solve a problem. But in solving that problem, our ancestors unknowingly created one of the most powerful inventions in human history. An invention that would shape empires, build economies, start wars, and eventually connect the entire world through a single idea: money. So, why gold? By now, humanity had realized it needed something that everyone would accept in exchange for goods and services. But that raises another question. Why gold? Why not wood? Why not iron? Or wheat? After all of those things had value. The answer wasn't simply because gold was beautiful. It was because gold possessed something that no other material could offer at the same time. Unlike iron, it doesn't rust. Unlike food, it doesn't rot. A piece of gold buried beneath the ground for thousands of years can be uncovered today, looking almost exactly as it did the day it was hidden. Gold was also incredibly rare. Not so rare that it was impossible to find, but rare enough that no king, merchant, or empire could suddenly create more of it overnight. That scarcity gave people confidence that its value wouldn't disappear tomorrow. At the same time, gold was practical. It could be melted into coins, divided into smaller pieces, carried across vast distances, and stored for generations without losing its quality. But perhaps the most important reason had nothing to do with its physical properties. It had everything to do with human psychology. Long before governments existed, long before central banks, and long before civilizations were connected by trade routes, people living thousands of miles apart reached the same remarkable conclusion. Gold was worth keeping. No emperor ordered the entire world to value gold. No single civilization forced others to accept it. Its value emerged naturally, because people trusted that someone else would always be willing to accept it in exchange for something valuable. That shared belief transformed gold into history's first truly international form of money. For thousands of years, gold became the foundation of trade, wealth, and power. But despite all its advantages, gold had one serious weakness. Imagine trying to buy a house by carrying sacks filled with gold coins. Imagine traveling hundreds of miles on horseback with your entire life savings strapped to your saddle. The more wealth people accumulated, the heavier and more dangerous it became to move. Gold was incredibly valuable, but it wasn't practical for a rapidly growing world. Merchants needed something lighter, something safer, something easier to carry from one city to another. And that's when one of history's greatest financial innovations appeared. Surprisingly, it wasn't invented by kings. It wasn't created by governments. And it certainly wasn't born on a battlefield. It began quietly inside the workshops of goldsmiths. Because goldsmiths owned strong vaults, people started leaving their gold with them for safekeeping. In return, the goldsmith handed them a simple receipt, a small piece of paper confirming exactly how much gold had been deposited. At first, that paper had almost no value of its own. It was nothing more than proof that the real wealth was safely stored somewhere else. But over time, something unexpected happened. Instead of returning to collect their gold every time they wanted to make a purchase, people began handing those receipts directly to someone else. Why? Because everyone trusted that the receipt could always be exchanged for the gold waiting inside the vault. For the first time in history, people realized they no longer needed to carry the gold itself. All they needed was trust. Without fully understanding it, humanity had taken the first step toward a completely new kind of money: paper money. And that simple idea would eventually change the global economy forever. But gold had one big problem. For centuries, gold was the perfect form of money. It was rare, durable, easy to divide, and trusted almost everywhere. But as trade expanded and civilizations grew larger, people discovered that even gold had a serious flaw. Imagine trying to buy a house with bags full of gold coins, or traveling hundreds of miles across mountains and deserts while carrying your entire life's savings on horseback. The wealthier you became, the heavier your money became, and the more gold you carried, the greater the risk of being robbed. Gold was incredibly valuable, but it wasn't practical for a world that was becoming more connected every day. Merchants needed something different, something lighter, something safer, and most importantly, something that could represent gold without requiring people to carry it everywhere they went. The solution didn't come from a king, it wasn't invented by an emperor, and it certainly wasn't created on a battlefield. Instead, one of the greatest financial innovations in history was born quietly inside the workshops of medieval goldsmiths. Goldsmiths owned some of the safest vaults of their time. People began storing their gold there, knowing it would be protected from thieves and fire. In return, the goldsmith handed them a simple receipt, a small piece of paper stating exactly how much gold had been deposited. At first, these receipts had no value of their own. They were simply proof that real gold was waiting safely inside the vault. But then something remarkable happened. People realized they didn't actually need to collect the gold every time they wanted to buy something. Instead, they could simply hand the receipt to someone else. The seller accepted it because they knew the paper could always be exchanged for the gold stored inside the vault. Slowly, people stopped exchanging the gold itself. They began exchanging the promise of gold instead. Without realizing it, humanity had taken one of the most important steps in financial history. For the first time, a simple piece of paper had become more convenient than gold itself, and that small idea would eventually evolve into the paper money we still use today. So, why does money have value today? By this point in history, paper money had become far more convenient than carrying gold. It made trade faster, safer, and helped economies grow at an unprecedented pace. But there was one important detail. For centuries, every banknote represented something real. If you walked into a bank with that piece of paper, you could exchange it for a specific amount of gold stored inside the vault. The paper itself wasn't the money. Gold was. The banknote was simply a promise. Then everything changed. In 1971, the United States made a decision that would reshape the global financial system forever. The US dollar was no longer convertible into gold. One by one, almost every major currency in the world followed the same path. For the first time in modern history, money was no longer backed by a precious metal. So that raises an uncomfortable question. If your money can no longer be exchanged for gold, why does it still have value? The answer is surprisingly simple. Trust. Nothing more. Nothing less. Your salary has value because you believe someone else will accept it tomorrow. The money in your bank account has value because millions of businesses agree to exchange real goods and real services for those digital numbers. Even the balance you see on your phone isn't wealth you can physically touch. It's information, a number stored inside a computer, and yet, with that number, you can buy food, pay your rent, book a flight, or even purchase a house. How is that possible? Because every morning, billions of people wake up and make the same silent agreement. They trust that everyone else will continue believing in the system, and as long as that trust exists, money continues to work. When you think about it, money may be the greatest shared belief humanity has ever created. You can't eat it, you can't build a home with it, and in most cases today you can't even hold most of it in your hands. Yet it builds skyscrapers, it funds scientific discoveries, it connects global trade, it pays salaries, it feeds billions of people every single day. Its power doesn't come from the paper it's printed on or the numbers displayed on a screen. Its power comes from something far more fragile, our collective belief that it will still have value tomorrow. Because in the end, money isn't really made of paper, it isn't made of metal, and it certainly isn't made of digital code. Money is made of trust, and perhaps that leads us to the most important question of all. What happens if one day that trust disappears? Ending. So, after thousands of years of human history, after gold, coins, paper banknotes, and now digital money, we find ourselves back where we started. What is money really? Is it the paper in your wallet, the gold locked away in a vault, or the numbers glowing on your phone screen? Perhaps it's none of those things. Perhaps money is something far more powerful, an idea, a promise, a shared belief that billions of people have chosen to trust. Every day, without ever speaking to one another, people all over the world accept money for their work, their time, and the things they create. Not because the paper itself has value, and not because the numbers on a screen are made of something precious, but because we all believe that someone else will accept them tomorrow. That belief has built cities, it has connected continents, it has fueled revolutions, financed empires, and transformed the modern world. Yet it's also one of the most fragile systems humanity has ever created. Because if money exists only as long as people trust it, then one question becomes impossible to ignore. Who protects that trust? Who decides how much money exists? Who has the power to create it? And who benefits when more of it enters the system? These are questions that affect every one of us, whether we realize it or not. Because the story of money isn't just about economics. It's the story of power, the story of governments, the story of banks, and ultimately, the story of the world we live in today. In the next episode, we'll follow that story even further. We'll uncover who creates money, how new money enters the economy, and why almost every country on Earth continues to borrow, even when it seems like they could simply print more. Because once you understand what money really is, you're finally ready to discover who creates it, and why that changes everything.